Hello, welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Andrew Musgrove. Time for the view from the opposition, and this week it comes from Ian Croll of the Royal Blue podcast, part of the Liverpool Echo. Ian, welcome back to the show. How are you keeping? You well?
Yeah, good, Andrew. Thanks for having me on. Is this the second time I've been on the Everything is Black and White podcast now?
I feel like it must be more than that, surely.
Honestly, me mind is like a sieve at this moment in time, so I honestly can't remember. But I'm, regardless, I am happy to be here and chat all things Everton and Newcastle.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I've got to be honest with you and our listeners that I'm not looking forward to Saturday at all, especially given what happened in Marseille on Tuesday night. I was hoping that would go in with a bit of a bounce in our step, but the performance in France doesn't fill me with much confidence heading down to Merseyside. Before we talk footballing, I want to talk about the brand new stadium, because the travelling Newcastle United fans will perhaps get a bit of a taste of what a brand new stadium for Newcastle could potentially look like. Is it as good as it looks like when we see it on the TV and in the newspapers?
I mean, aesthetically, from the outside and the inside, for me personally, it's everything that I hope for that an Everton stadium would look like. It's got the look of Goodison Park to an extent, with the things looking up to that, and then it's got the modern aspect of the stadium as well. So, it's obviously something that we needed to do. Goodison Park is our legacy home, and it always will be. It's still there, obviously being used by Everton's women's team. But we've moved on, and what helps with the move is results on the pitch, and we've other than the Tottenham game, we've had some fairly decent results at the new stadium, so we've settled in quite well. But yet Newcastle fans, in the away section, can't say I've sat in the away section myself, but it's in for a treat, and hopefully you can enjoy the day as a whole. Maybe not the results, but hopefully enjoy the stadium and what the facilities have to offer.
People, when they talk about new stadiums, and in particular when they talk about potentially even St James's Park, they are concerned that the atmosphere that can be created up on the hill there won't be replicated in a brand new modern day arena. Goodison was one of those stadiums which came with a reputation of being a bit ferocious. Obviously, you're very close to the pitch and what have you. Did you have similar concerns? And if so, have those concerns gone away since you've moved?
I think yes and no. I think from what we've been told by the stadium architect, Dan Mice, the stadium has been designed specifically for a ferocious atmosphere. And obviously it's still very early days into, staying into our new home at Hill Dickinson Stadium. So, there's going to be plenty more games where the atmosphere is going to be ferocious, and I fully expect it to be that on Saturday. Obviously it's a 5:30 kickoff. It's going to be a night game. And obviously with a couple of subplots and narratives with regards to Everton and Newcastle, I'm sure it'll be, a big rivalry. Goodison, as you mentioned, it was obviously close to the pitch, and any player who's ever played there and been on the losing side have always commented about the crowd and the stadium. But, at the end of the day, it's the fans that make that noise. It's the fans that make that atmosphere. And we've taken them fans from Goodison Park to the new stadium. And, the last couple of games, certainly the Fulham game, certainly the Crystal Palace game, where we've picked up points, the atmosphere has been, well up there with what I expected, and I think it's only just the beginning really for Everton.
Yeah, exciting times for you guys. In terms of the football then, David Moyes back at Everton, doing a good job by all accounts. A tremendous victory over Manchester United on Monday, despite being down to 10 men for the majority of the game. I mean, you come into this game against Newcastle, I imagine, really good spirits after that performance.
Yeah, without a doubt, 100%. And it's safe to say it was an unlikely victory on Monday, even before we went down to 10 men. I think beforehand we certainly would have taken a point. Obviously, I don't think United are fully back to what they once were, but they certainly picked up over the past couple of weeks and months. And I think their only defeat this season at home was to Arsenal, who were obviously flying. So there was a slight bit of trepidation there. I think going into the game, it's one of them cliches. Do you take a point? And the majority of Everton fans would have answered yes. There would obviously have been a couple of positive fans who would have answered, no, well, let's go there and get the win. But, largely looking at Everton's record at Old Trafford, it's not been great. It was the one win prior to that in many years, I think dating back to Roberto Martinez's time at the club. So to go there and to start the game as well as we did, to be fair, and the early sending off wasn't ideal, but to kind of regroup and react the way we did when we went down to 10 men. Let's not forget, we went 1-0 up and then went down to 10 men. We had the sending off and then scored. So the fact that we were able to do that, it bodes well. But one thing that Everton fans have always been critical about is the lack of fight that the players have maybe shown on the pitch in previous seasons, and the resilience and the psychological elements of maybe hanging on to a 1-0 lead or a 2-1 lead. And for all of United's qualities, they just weren't able to break Everton down. Maybe played into Everton's defence, their hands a little bit in terms of just kind of crosses into the box and lumping the ball into the box. I think Ruben Amorim's probably got a little bit to answer for with regards to his tactics on that, but Everton dealt with it incredibly well. And it wasn't just the defence. Your last line of defence is your goalkeeper, Jordan Pickford, had to make 2 or 3, amazing saves. He's really coming into his own now, and it was a different type of performance, but it was certainly go down as a memorable one. And on the back of the Fulham victory prior to the international break, that's 2-2 now, and obviously we're hoping to make it 3 against Newcastle on Saturday.
You mentioned there the sending off, very, very bizarre. Newcastle fans will liken it to that of Lee Bowyer versus Kieran Dyer many years ago. How big of a miss will Idrissa be for Everton?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? I've done a couple of podcasts this week reacting to the Manchester United game, and I've almost nonchalantly said, "Oh, it doesn't matter because we got the win." Now, the more I think about that, it's ridiculous saying that, because the consequence of Idrissa getting sent off, despite the regrouping in the United game, is that now he is unavailable for Newcastle. He's unavailable for the Bournemouth game as well on the Tuesday night. So he's going to save a 3-match ban, and Everton have got a couple of options that they can put in place of Idrissa in midfield, but he's a huge loss regardless. So we certainly don't want to be going down to 10 men against Newcastle ourselves. It was a bizarre incident, and if there's one player from the Everton side who you would think the least of all to do that, to slap another teammate in the face, it would be Idrissa Gana Gueye. He's the most laid-back person from the outside looking in. So it was a bizarre one. It was a strange one. And yeah, look, by the letter of the law, it was a sending off, I guess. But the referee, as David Moyes said, made a very quick decision. And if he had a little bit more time to just assess, just think about it, could he have just given both players a yellow card? Could he have just given Idrissa Gueye a yellow card, even just to talking to? Obviously, you mentioned the incident from the Newcastle point of view all those years ago with Lee Bowyer and Kieran Dyer. I don't think it was anything along those lines, but it's the letter of the law. He's got to go, regardless of whether you're slapped an opposition player or a teammate. So he's going to be a big miss, but we have got options to put in there. So it'll be interesting to see what David Moyes is going to do.
In terms of the team, I mean, you've got a lot of stars that Newcastle will have to keep quiet. Jack Grealish on loan for Manchester City is having a decent spell of it. You've got Ndiaye as well, who I'm a big fan of. I mean, just talk to us about those two first and the threat that they carry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jack Grealish had a fantastic start of the season, didn't he? I think within the first couple of games, he did notch 4 assists. He's been a little bit quieter on that end over the past couple of weeks, but that's not to say that he's not having an impact. His defensive game is up there with some of the best. He tracks back, he defends, he puts tackles in. He's able to retain possession of the ball when we're under pressure. So all that is recognised. And obviously you mentioned Iliman Ndiaye. I think his name is coming to the fore, certainly over the past couple of weeks, with some certainly highlight reel goals and some really standout performances. Obviously he's the goal against Sunderland, the performance certainly in the first half against Manchester City, where unfortunately we were unable to take advantage of that. But you are right, a lot of opposition fans are starting to talk about Iliman Ndiaye, and they're the two players that Moyes wants Everton to play through. There's been a little bit of debate and, I guess, frustration at certain parts of the season that maybe there's an over-reliance on those two players to get the ball to those out wide, get crosses into the box, and they have been doing that. There's no doubt about that. But the end product probably hasn't been there, and that's down to the strikers. But there's also a train of thought that, though there had been a train of thought that, again, relying on those two a little bit too much, maybe we should go a little bit more direct to the strikers. Let's try and play in behind. Let's try and get the strikers on the shoulder of the last defender. So, yeah, they are going to be the two creative sparks for the season, not just the Newcastle game. We are obviously going to lose Iliman and Dye at some point in December because he's off to the African Cup of Nations. How long he is away for will obviously remain to be seen, whether Senegal can get all the way to the final. So obviously we unfortunately not going to have our Senegal hats on for that. We hope Iliman and Dye is back in an Everton shirt as soon as possible. We've got him for the next couple of games at least, and he'll almost definitely be a threat on the right wing against Newcastle on Saturday.
We often talk about the midfield being key, and Newcastle United have got some very good individuals, Bruno, Tonali, Joe Linton. Probably be a little bit of rotation for this game, given the tight turnaround that Newcastle have got with the midweek games as well. But Everton have got some very good operators in the middle of the park. I think a lot of people have maybe been caught out by Garner in the middle since he's arrived from Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean, James Garner's definitely pushed on, certainly since the start of the season. There was always that question mark, certainly the back end of the last season, and he has had his injury problems. So I think he came back in after a long-term layoff, or a mid-term layoff, shall we say, when David Moyes came back in, and he's probably played pretty much every game. He's also a versatile player, so if we're short on the right side of the fence or the left side of the fence, which he's played both full-back positions this season, he will be put in there. With the fact that Idrissa Gueye is suspended now, there's 100% certainty that James Garner will be playing in the midfield, and probably Jake O'Brien will fit back into the right-back position. So it'll just be who probably partners James Garner, and discussing it on a preview show that we've just recorded this morning. I'll probably say with 95% certainty that it'll be Tim Iraboumam, who has had some decent cameos this season for Everton, had an impact when he's come off the bench. And he's a player, if he starts the game, he'll start the game well because he's just got that energy. But he will fade. He'll fade when it gets to about the 60, 65-minute mark. So it'll be interesting to see what David Moyes does. That is my shout for James Garner in the midfield. But, I mean, there was a couple of images and videos, wasn't it, of Thomas Tuchel talking to James Garner after the Manchester United game. He was in attendance at Old Trafford. Can James Garner push for an England place? I think there's still a lot for him to do with regards to that, but he's certainly come on in his ability. It's just questionable whether he's maybe a little bit too lightweight. He doesn't shake out of a challenge or anything like that, but that's been one criticism of Everton's midfield. Certainly in the games where we've lost or dropped points, is that the midfield is sometimes a little bit overrun. And we just haven't got that dominating powerhouse midfielder that obviously Newcastle do have. So it's going to be interesting. I fully expect a tough game and a tough battle in the midfield with obviously the players that Newcastle have got there. So just very quickly, I think Kean is going to play a pivotal role in that as long as he's fit and 100%. He's been fantastic the past 2 or 3 games after taking a whole host of criticism. Just with regards to his performances, he started off the season well and then has dipped a little bit, and that criticism's probably been aimed at the manager, really, as the tactical elements of where Kean and Dewsbury Hall actually plays it. Is he a number 10? Should he be used more as a deep lying holder midfielder, maybe as more of a number 8? And we've probably seen him play more of a number 8, certainly a little bit deeper over the past 2 to 3 games, and it's benefited him, it's benefited the team. So it's going to be an intriguing battle, no doubt.
Certainly. So just to remind ladies and gents, this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Do click the link in the podcast description box to get a discount offer on your NordVPN plan. No risk with a 30-day money-back guarantee, 1 subscription, 10 devices. Sign up, keep yourself safe while browsing on public Wi-Fi. The question about Newcastle's midfield may largely be answered by how Everton approached the game. So how will Everton approach the game? Are they going to have a lot of the ball, or are they going to sit back and invite Newcastle on, do you think?
Oh, it's a hard question to answer. What I will say is I don't think they'll try and change or defer from anything that they've done over the past couple of weeks. They're not going to play with a massively high line because the type of defenders that we've got if Newcastle aim to, lump balls into the box or get crosses into the box, so, I would expect our defence to deal with that to an extent. Obviously, you've got a powerhouse striker there in Woltemade, who's, I don't know, what is he, 6'6", is he? I'm sure he'd be able to outjump Michael Kean and James Tarkowski and get his head on a few, but I'd have faith in Everton's defence to do that. I think it's like what I said earlier on, and when we started the podcast, the aim will be to get the ball to Jack Grealish and Illiman and Dye. What one thing I will say over the past 2 to 3 games is that Everton previously have been rotating the strikers, and David Moyes basically just couldn't decide who was his number one striker. It was Tieno Barry, who we signed from Villarreal for 28 million, who predominantly played in a 2 for Villarreal, so we had that strike partner. And then you've got Beto, who for all his endeavour and his work ethic, and to be fair, he had a really good spell at the back end of last season, scoring a number of goals which effectively sealed Everton's status in the Premier League. He's just not able to hold the ball up as well as some of the top strikers in the league can do. So it's been a bit of a back and forth, selection dilemma for David Moyes, and I think confidence has been shot. Missed chances inside the 6-yard area. Tieno Barry was, I don't know if you watched it, but against Sunderland, there's one where he should have scored, and on that basis, he missed that chance, and Sunderland got themselves back in the game after what was a fantastic 30-minute display from Everton. So that was a disappointment. But what's happened since that Sunderland game? Barry played well, and then he was given a vote of confidence by the manager. He was selected again against Fulham, and he is so much, well, I'm going to go as far as to say so superior at holding the ball up compared to Beto. It's not just his hold-up play, it's his layoffs. And on Monday against Manchester United, he's won the most aerial duels in any one game, more than any other player or any other striker. So he's got a lot of elements to a game. Don't get me wrong, he's not hit the heights in terms of goal scoring, but what he's effectively doing, as mentioned just there with Kean and Dewsbury Hall, he's able to bring other players into the game. So I think the tactics will obviously be get the ball out wide, but it'll also be bring the striker into play as well, and get that ball into his feet. He's pacey, he's fast as well. So I would expect a couple of balls in behind and see if he can get those 3 balls in on the shoulders of the last defender. But it's getting Kean and Dewsbury Hall involved as well, and Tieno Barry over the past couple of games has been key to that. So that's how I'd expect Everton to play, and like I say, defend resolutely when needed.
Is that kind of a striker and then a number 10? Is that how them two are setting up at the moment?
That's how it is on paper, I guess. But like I say, because Barry has been coming a little bit more deeper from a striker point of view, and he's a lot more confident and assured than Beto has been, it's enabling Kean and Dewsbury Hall to do the same as well. And Kean and Dewsbury Hall is certainly a midfielder who's far better at progressing the ball forward. And you could see that from the game against Man United on Monday. Don't get me wrong, he was in that number 10 position, but he was waiting for those balls from the wing inside, from Grealish, from Ndai, and that was the catalyst really for the Kean and Dewsbury Hall goal. He received the ball from Grealish out wide, quick turn, no immediate pressure until a little touch from the United defender, and it set him up perfectly, and he scored an absolute worldie.
Yeah, it was a fantastic goal. And we've spoken a lot about Everton and what they do well, but if Eddie Howe asked you to share their biggest weakness that he can exploit, what would it be?
I just think, concentration really. It's, for set pieces wise, we've been relatively okay. I think the Tottenham game was the first game this season where we got beat 3-0 and we conceded 2 set pieces. So I guess Jordan Pickford, I absolutely love Jordan Pickford. I think he's up there with some of the best goalkeepers in the world. But I guess from a set piece point of view, if you're going to try and put pressure on us there, it would be to do that to Jordan Pickford. We've got 2 defenders in Michael Kean and James Tarkowski who can almost handle themselves. But the way Tottenham exploited maybe Pickford's weakness in that respect, I'd probably say that's something that Newcastle could probably look at really.
And in terms of the one man from Newcastle United that you are fearing, or David Moyes is fearing, who do you think you'll be looking at?
It's got to be Woltemade for me, to be honest. I think before he went to Newcastle, he was a player who was getting linked with Everton as well. And I mean, he was getting linked with a whole host of teams, I'm sure. And he seems to have settled in fairly well. I think he has missed maybe one or two chances over the past couple of weeks that I've seen in like highlight reels, but strikers miss chances. That's just the game. He seems calm, assured and composed, and he said the physicality of the Premier League, he seems to have settled in with that. And I was really impressed with that penalty that he scored. I can't remember who it was against, sorry, I'm sure you'll be able to remind me, but I've seen a couple of penalties like that in over the past couple of years of watching football, and that was definitely up there with one of the best penalties I've ever seen. So I think he's going to be a handful, 100%. And but like I say, James Tarkowski, Michael Kean, probably two players who can, hold their own, and we'll see where it goes from there. Just very quickly, in terms of weaknesses, I would say from a full-back position, we've obviously got Jake O'Brien, who is a natural centre-back. He is going to play right-back. I think that will be the team selection. So, you could get, if you got fast-pacey wingers, get in behind him on that. And then you've got Vitaly Mykolenko, who is a natural left back. He's a solid enough left back, but I think there can be at times where he might let himself down a little bit. So obviously you've got your full back. We've got our weaknesses in the full back positions there. So it would be one that maybe Newcastle could exploit.
Fingers crossed. And before I get your score prediction, Ian, Newcastle's away form has been particularly poor. They haven't won in the Premier League away from St James's Park since April when they beat Leicester City. The last three games, including the one just played in the Champions League, they've gone 1-0 up and then ended up losing the game. I mean, if you're Everton, if you're David Moyes, are you targeting this clash on Saturday as one that you should be winning?
I don't want to be disrespectful in that sense, is that we should be winning. What I will say is that before the Manchester United game, I think the most positive of Everton fan was saying we should try and take 4 points from the next two. Now we've got 3. Obviously, going into a home game against a side, it doesn't matter if it's Newcastle. It's a side who was struggling away from home and probably have distractions maybe with the Champions League as well, but that's a good distraction. Obviously that's where you want to be in the Champions League. I think there might be question marks over whether Newcastle's squad is big enough to cope with this sort of thing, and I'm sure we can come on to that. But like I say, I don't want to be disrespectful and say it's one that we should, but what I will say is it's one that I hope we can take advantage of. I didn't realise Newcastle's away record was that bad. I only really looked, my research only went back to the beginning of the season, and you drew the first 3 and then you lost the next 3. So on the back of two wins in a row, and then again discussing Newcastle's away form, it's definitely one Everton should take advantage of, and I'll be hoping they do.
Come on then, give me a score prediction.
So I've gone for a win. I said that on our preview show this morning. I think I said 1-0. So this is definitely no gimme for Everton. It's going to be a tough game. Like you say, Newcastle's midfield in the centre of the midfield is top notch. Woltemade, he's definitely going to be a quality signing for the money that you paid for him as well. So yeah, it's 1-0 for Everton, I think, and I think it's just going to be a ferocious atmosphere, regardless. We haven't discussed them, but I don't know whether Anthony Gordon's going to play. And there's always that narrative and that subplot of Anthony Gordon coming back to Everton, obviously in a different setting from last season's Goodison Park match. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, and it's on the telly 5:30. So be there; it'll be good.
Yeah, I didn't bring Anthony Gordon into our discussion because A, every time he goes to Goodison, he might as well not have turned up, and B, he's not really flavour of the month at the moment. He's every time he started of late, especially in the Premier League, he's a little bit poor. Hasn't had a goal in 21 games to memory in the Premier League, and hasn't had an assist in 19. So things aren't going particularly well for Gordon domestically. So I haven't really mentioned him because I'm hoping that actually starts on the bench on Saturday, because I don't think this is the right game for him going back to Everton, and Harvey Barnes is the only man scoring goals at the moment, so he's got to keep his spot. But you never know, he might get the nod. It wouldn't surprise too many people. given Eddie Howe's tendency to shake things up. Ian, thank you very much for joining us on The View from the Opposition. To you guys watching and listening, thank you. As always, head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the latest Newcastle United news.